Hey everyone, Mr. Marquise from NorthBay, and today I want to talk about natural selection. Now, natural selection is the evolutionary mechanism in which individuals that are better suited to their environment survive and reproduce most successfully. So to understand natural selection and how it works, we're going to talk about two evolutionary concepts. One is descent with modification, and two is common descent. Descent with modification is the observable fact that when parents produce offspring, their offspring often look and behave slightly different than their parents, and even slightly different from each other. And these differences are partially due to genetic mutation. And a genetic mutation is simply a change in its DNA. So now we're going to talk about common descent. Now, common descent is the idea that all living things on Earth descended from one common ancestor. Now, unfortunately, we can't go back in time to see this common ancestor, so it's not an observable fact, but it's conclusion-based. So through the gradual process of descent with modifications over many generations, we get this idea of common descent. This idea of common descent is based off findings from genetics, comparative anatomy, fossil records, biochemistry, and species distribution. So now let's get back into natural selection. Natural selection leads to adaptation, and an adaptation is a physical or behavioral trait that makes an organism better suited to its environment. So this means that organisms that are anatomically, behaviorally, and physiologically well suited to its environment will survive and reproduce. One example of natural selection can be found on the Galapagos Islands. When Darwin went to the Galapagos Islands, he noticed that each of the islands had tortoises, but they were all different in some way. The Galapagos Islands is a collection of 18 main islands, many of which are home to tortoises. The larger islands contain lots of vegetation, grasses, and plants, so the tortoises on those islands grew very large and had big dome-like shells. The smaller islands, however, had little vegetation, forcing them to eat island cacti. The best cactus pads grow on the tops of these island cacti plants. They were equipped with long, expanded front legs and a saddle-shaped shell that allowed them to fully expand and stretch their necks to the tops of the island cacti plants. Each of the tortoises found on the different islands were suited for their respective island. So we can conclude that everything that is alive on the planet today, each organism is best suited for the environment in which it lives. Organisms have certain adaptations that allow it to fulfill its niche, and a niche is an organism's role in its community. Think about some of the native animals at home in your community. What are some adaptations that allow for those animals to survive in that habitat? We can also talk about adaptation in a more simpler sense, in our daily lives. As humans, we need to adapt daily, whether that be minute to minute, hour to hour, or even second to second. We have to adapt to the changing circumstances in our lives in order to survive, thrive, and be successful. So I want you to take a minute and think about some of the adaptations that we humans may have to allow us to be successful and fulfill our niche in society. I hope you all enjoyed this video and found some of this information useful. Remember, during this time at home, use your time constructively. Challenge yourself to learn one new thing a day, because knowledge is power. It's Mr. Marquise signing out. Until next time.